Good morning again to all the MBMG members, new and veteran members, first, second, and third generation members. And as we celebrate your anniversary and the birthday of our Blessed Mother, allow me to begin by sharing some reflections about a Japanese art called kintsugi, which is the restoration of broken porcelain. And I will show you a picture of one such here. So instead of throwing away shards of broken ceramic and porcelain, kintsugi artists piece them back together, piece back the fragments together using an enamel, a binding agent. And then they trace all the cracks with gold. And so instead of concealing the cracks, the fragmented parts, kintsugi as an art form, in a way, even highlights the cracks of what was formerly a pristine piece of ceramic. And therefore, there are three stages in the life of a piece of pottery or ceramic. First, it's pristine state. And then second, it's broken state. But third, it's restored state. And for the Japanese, the broken is not to be discarded. The broken is to be mended again once more. And the outcome, without concealing that which was formerly broken, for them is even more beautiful, more precious than the original pristine state of the piece of ceramic or pottery. So, with all the gold tracings of the cracks, for them, this restored piece is even something more precious than the original. I use this as a metaphor for the life of grace of our Blessed Mother. She also underwent these three stages that a piece of ceramic goes through. First, the pristine stage. Second, the broken stage. Third, the stage of restoration. The pristine stage of Mama Mary, the joyful event of the Annunciation by the angel Gabriel, that she would bear the Savior of the world. Mama Mary must have been 12 to 14 years old, according to biblical scholars. And the town of Nazareth was such an insignificant village that it was not even included in ancient maps of Israel. It was not even a barangay. It was more like a pook, a sitio of one of our barangays today. And so insignificant, with only around 50 families, many of them kinsmen, clan members. And yet from this insignificant town, this young maiden of no social status was chosen to bear the Savior of the world. The joyful, pristine state of Mary, so innocent and filled by the Spirit. But let me explain further that Mary may not have understood the message of an angel. Because when the angel declared, "You shall bear the Messiah," the Jewish notion of the Messiah is different from our Christian understanding of the Messiah. For us, the Messiah is none other than the second person of the Trinity, the eternal Son in human form. But for the Jew, the Messiah was their king. So in our first reading from the book of Micah, he prophesied that the Savior would come from Bethlehem. The Savior is none other than the King of Israel. And so David was called the Messiah. Solomon was called the Messiah because Messiah and King were synonymous to the Jew. And moreover, for us, we think of Jesus and we worship Jesus as the second person of the Trinity. But that is already a Christian understanding, conception of God that has been formulated after the resurrection of Christ. But Mary was raised as a Jew. And for Jews, there was only one God. It was inconceivable for Mary to understand our notion of her son as the eternal Word in human form. For Mary, this miraculous birth was similar to the miraculous birth of noble and important men in the Old Testament. So Isaac, the son of Abraham and Sarah, was also born in a miraculous way. Samson, the son of Manoah, and his elderly wife also was born through a miraculous way. And so for Mary, during her pristine, innocent stage, she was filled with the Spirit, but she may not have comprehended the details of God's plans for her. And yet, in total trust in the Lord, she surrendered herself to our God. Be it done to me according to your will. And then the second phase of kintsugi is the shattering of the piece of porcelain. Mary was shattered continuously, and as though a dagger was pierced through her heart, and she pondered over the many mysteries that she could not understand. From having to flee Bethlehem because of this tyrant Herod who wanted to kill her son, to finding Jesus in the temple when he was 12 after losing him for a day or two, to hearing of reports during his ministry that people were opposing him, that people, including the religious leaders, were plotting against him, to witnessing her son being nailed on the cross, to cradling the lifeless body of her son in her arms. Mary, like the piece of ceramic, was shattered multiple times, was fragmented into 100 pieces. Mary, at the foot of the cross, must have called upon the angel Gabriel, "What hence of your promises that my son would be the Savior of the world? He lies lifeless in my arms. Where are the promises of God?" In Mary's shattered state, there were many questions that remained unanswered. Mary was confounded by the turn of events in the life of her son, and Mary could not scrutinize the will of the Father. And yet, even in the darkness, even amidst despair, she surrendered her life. Be it done to me according to your word. And then the third phase of the art of kintsugi, the restoration. That which is broken is mended. And so, beyond her wildest expectations, according to the meditations of Saint Ignatius, our risen Lord first appeared to his mother. How could Jesus not first appear to his beloved mother? And so Jesus astounds her. The risen Lord embraces her, and she is awestruck as she sees her son resurrected in a new, glorious, transformed manner that was beyond her expectations, her wildest imaginations. But note, no, that just like the art of kintsugi does not obliterate the places of fragmentation, Jesus, the risen Lord, continued to bear the wounds that the nails caused. Jesus, the risen Lord, presented his hands, his palms, still with the punctures of the nails. In a way, the resurrection does not erase the passion that Jesus or Mary went through. The resurrection incorporated the dying, the suffering of Jesus and Mary, embracing them, transforming them, bringing them to life anew. And so with Mary, Mary, post-resurrection, became an important member of the Church of Jerusalem. But her experience of the mysteries of grace in her life bring about renewal, restoration, did not trivialize her suffering and her pain. She learned along the way that this new and transformed life cannot but go through a life of suffering, a life of self-giving, a life of self-emptying, even to the point of death, like her son. Finally, no, we must not forget the invisible hand, the restorer of the broken pieces of pottery, the hand of the kintsugi master, the hand of grace, the hand of God, picking up the broken pieces of our lives, mending them, and bringing newness and transformation in ways beyond we could imagine. And so as we reflect on grace operating on the life of Mary, we might also reflect today on our experience of grace, like the kintsugi master, crafting us, shaping us, molding us. But then, no, grace will not intervene with sin and evil in the world and within ourselves to destroy us. Like the piece of pottery, we have been all shattered by our experiences of sin and evil outside us and sin and evil within us. But then grace, the kintsugi master, will mend the broken pieces of our lives and restore us without obliterating our pain, our suffering, even highlighting all the broken parts of ourselves and the broken pieces of our lives, but bringing forth something even far more beautiful. And so perhaps we can reflect on our pristine state as pieces of art of the Lord. When He led us to our lifetime partner, when He guided us in the flourishment of our career, when through grace we brought forth into this world our offspring, the pristine, innocent face of our lives was filled with joy as we entered marriage, entered the work place, and sired our children. But then the second phase of the fragmentation, none of us imagined what we would go through. Many of us have lost our spouses who have either gone ahead of us or perhaps through a marriage that has fallen apart. Many of us have experienced the undeserved pain of a parent burying her child. Children ought to bury their children, their parents, but in some of our cases, we have buried our own offspring. And so we have experienced fragmentation of careers that eventually puttered, of relationships that eventually were broken apart. But thirdly and finally, the restoration by the work of grace, by the work and the hand of the Kintsugi master. In many ways, we have not imagined the gift of an unexpected child within our clan, the unexpected reconciliation with someone we thought we would never reconcile with for the rest of our lives. The unexpected grace of finding strength to move on after a broken marriage or after the death of a child. The unexpected grace of a capacity to forgive beyond hurt. The unexpected grace to believe, to hope in God's goodness amid so much corruption in society, to believe in God's mercy amidst the fear that we all go through during this pandemic. We have experienced restoration in multiple ways, like Mama Mary, who beheld her risen son. Kintsugi, the work of grace, has been present in our lives, restoring all that has been broken and bringing forth beauty unimagined.